The little girl nearly tripped over her own feet as she ran into the gas station parking lot, tears streaking down her dusty cheeks. "They're beating my mama," she cried. "Please help her." The words were aimed at the last people most folks in town would have trusted with a frightened child. A group of leather-clad bikers gathered beside a row of rumbling motorcycles. Before we continue, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Leave your city or country in the comments. And stay with me until the end, because this story took a turn nobody in that parking lot expected. If you enjoy emotional human stories, consider subscribing to Kindness Journey. The bikers looked at one another. People in the small Missouri town of Ash Creek usually crossed the street when they saw the Iron Saints Motorcycle Club. Their jackets, tattoos, and rough appearances made them easy targets for assumptions. But the moment the little girl spoke, every conversation stopped. The club's president, a broad-shouldered man everyone called Hawk, crouched down until he was eye level with her. "Hey, sweetheart," he said calmly. "What's your name?" "Piper." "Okay, Piper. Take a breath. Where's your mama?" The girl pointed toward a narrow road behind the gas station. "There. By the old trailer." Hawk stood instantly. "Let's move." Within seconds, 8 bikers climbed onto their motorcycles. Piper sat in front of Hawk while the others followed close behind. As they rode, Hawk noticed the child trembling. "Your mama hurt?" "I don't know," she whispered. "I ran away when they pushed her down." The answer tightened every jaw in the group. 3 minutes later they reached an aging trailer at the edge of a neglected property. A pickup truck sat crooked in the dirt driveway. 2 men stood near the porch. One was shouting. The other was grabbing a woman's arm. The woman looked exhausted, thin, and frightened, but she was still trying to shield something behind her. The roar of 8 motorcycles shattered the scene. The men turned. The bikers rolled into the yard and stopped. Silence fell. Hawk stepped forward. "Let her go." The taller man laughed nervously. "This ain't your business." The woman finally looked up. For a moment, something flashed across Hawk's face. Recognition. The woman froze too. "Hawk," she whispered. The bikers exchanged confused looks. Hawk stared at her. "Renee?" The shouting man glanced between them. "You know this woman?" Hawk didn't answer. 20 years seemed to vanish from his expression. Renee had been his high school sweetheart. The girl he once planned to marry. The girl who disappeared from his life after her family moved away. Life had taken them in completely different directions. Now she stood on a collapsing porch with bruises on her arm and fear in her eyes. The man holding her released his grip. "Look, this is a misunderstanding." "No," Renee said quietly. "It isn't." The yard went silent again. Renee explained that after losing her job months earlier, she'd fallen behind on payments for the trailer. The 2 men worked for a property company hired to reclaim it. Legally, they had a right to remove belongings. But they had gone far beyond that. They'd threatened her, intimidated her, and moments earlier one had shoved her when she refused to leave before gathering Piper's medicine and school supplies. The men denied it immediately. But Piper's frightened face told a different story. Hawk looked at the property manager. "Did you put your hands on her?" "No." "Wrong answer," one of the bikers muttered. The manager suddenly looked less confident. What happened next surprised everyone. Hawk didn't threaten them. He didn't swing a fist. He didn't start a fight. Instead, he pulled out his phone. "Call the sheriff," he told one of the bikers. Then he turned to another. "Record everything." Within minutes, the entire story began unraveling. Several neighbors emerged from nearby trailers. One elderly woman spoke first. "I saw him shove her." Another neighbor nodded. "So did I." Then another. And another. The men realized they suddenly had half a dozen witnesses. The sheriff arrived 20 minutes later. Statements were taken. Videos were collected. The property company's behavior quickly became the focus of an official investigation. The two men left in silence. But the story wasn't over. Not even close. After the deputies departed, Renee sat on the porch steps with Piper asleep against her shoulder. The afternoon sun was beginning to fall. The other bikers gave them space. Hawk sat beside her. For a while neither spoke. Finally, Renee laughed softly. I always imagined running into you again. Probably not like this. Definitely not like this. She looked embarrassed. I hate that Piper saw any of that. You protected her. Not enough. Hawk glanced at the sleeping girl. You got her help. Renee smiled sadly. She got herself help. That night, the Iron Saints learned something they hadn't known. Renee had been fighting alone for nearly a year. Medical bills from her late mother's illness had destroyed her savings. She worked 2 jobs. Skipped meals sometimes. And somehow still kept Piper clothed, fed, and smiling. The next morning, without telling Renee, the bikers met at their clubhouse. By noon, they had a plan. Hawk expected maybe a few $100s from donations. Instead, something remarkable happened. Word spread through town. The same town that usually judged the bikers. The same people who locked their car doors when the Iron Saints rode past. Business owners contributed. Teachers contributed. Retirees contributed. The diner owner dropped in an envelope. The hardware store owner sent supplies. A local contractor offered labor. Within 5 days, enough money had been raised to clear Renee's immediate debts and secure stable housing. But that wasn't what left everyone speechless. The real surprise came the following Saturday. More than 60 motorcycles rolled through Ash Creek. Not to protest. Not to intimidate. To build. They repaired a small house donated by a local church program. They painted walls. Fixed plumbing. Installed shelves. Built Piper a bedroom. The little girl spent the day handing out bottled water while wearing an oversized biker vest covered in patches. By sunset, the house looked completely different. When Renee arrived and saw what had happened, she stopped walking. Her hand flew to her mouth. She couldn't speak. Piper ran inside first. Mom! Mom! Look! The child's laughter echoed through every room. For several moments, Renee simply stood there crying. Not because the house was perfect. It wasn't. The paint wasn't flawless. A cabinet door hung slightly crooked. One shelf leaned a little. But for the first time in years, someone had shown up for her. Not because they had to. Because they wanted to. Hawk walked over. You okay? Renee wiped her eyes. No. He looked concerned. Then she laughed through her tears. I think this is the first time in a very long time that I'm better than okay. Months later, life looked different. Renee found a steady job. Piper started 3rd grade. And every now and then, a row of motorcycles would appear outside their house. Not because there was trouble. Just because family checks on family. And every time Piper heard those engines, she ran outside smiling. The same little girl who once ran crying into a gas station parking lot had discovered something powerful. Sometimes help arrives from the people others misunderstand the most. If you were in Piper's situation, what would you have done? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if stories like this remind you of the good still hiding in unexpected places, subscribe to Kindness Journey for more emotional human stories.